Hi, my name is Brian Foster, and I will be guiding your saxophone practice over the next few weeks through these mini Masterclass videos. This week's lesson is going to be about scales and practice techniques. As saxophonists, knowing all the different scales and how to practice them in a way that benefits us the most is paramount to our growth and development as musicians. This week we'll be learning our G major scale and our E natural minor scale, as well as how to practice them properly. If you look in the video description below, you'll find links to download sheet music for all of our major scales and natural minor scales. So you can go ahead and download those, get those set up. Get set up with the major scales one first, and then we'll get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the notes and fingerings of our G major scale and then our E natural minor scale in little chunks and slowly, and then put the whole scale together like that. And then as we're doing that, we're going to talk about how to practice, what to listen for in your own playing while you're practicing, and ways to work in different aspects of our technique and our musicianship into how we practice our scales. So we're going to start with our G major scale, and our first group of notes is going to be G, A, B, and then C. So we start off on G, all three fingers pressing down on all three pearls. To go to our A, we just take our bottom finger off. To go to B, we take another finger off, so we only have that one up top. And then to go to our C, we take that finger off, but as we're doing that, we put our middle finger back on. So we have G, A, B, and then C. So now if you want, you can pause, blow a few notes, practice those fingerings, and then we're going to play it together. I'm going to give us a count of 4. So 1, 2, 3. We'll breathe together on beat 4, and then we'll come in. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good. Let's do that again. And remember, when you're playing with me, listen and try to blend to my sound a little, and also see if you can play in tune with me. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Let's do it one more time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Alright, good. Let's move on. Our next string of notes is going to be D, E, F sharp, and G. So to play our D, we press these keys down, so we're covering all the pearl keys. And then we put our octave key down in the back. Our next note, our E, we just take one finger off. So we have D, and then we have E. Our next note, F sharp, we take our pointer finger off in our right hand. So we only have this little guy in the middle. And then to go back to our G, we just take that off. So now we're back to the fingering that we started on, but now we have our octave key. So you have D, E, F sharp, and then G. So you can pause and practice that, and then we're going to play that much. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good. Same thing again. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Make sure that you're really pushing with the speed of your air so that you get up to that high G and it has a nice full sound and a steady pitch. Ready? One more time. 1, 2, 3. Alright, very good. So now we know all the notes to our G major scale. So now I'd like to play what we have so far. So going all the way up the scale, ascending. So you can pause and practice anything you want, maybe going between the C and the D, because that's that's a big change. And then we're going to play the whole thing together. Ready? And just quarter notes. 1, 2, 3. Good. Now let's do it again, and make sure you take a nice big breath so that you can support your sound all the way up. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Let's do it one more time. Really try to get it under our fingers. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So now what's left in our G major scale is to go back down. So we play all the same notes, but in reverse order. So starting at our high G with our thumb on the octave key, we go F sharp, put our middle finger down in our right hand. E, we put our pointer finger down. And then D, we put that last pearl down. So we have G, F sharp, E, D. Let's play that much. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good, let's do that one more time. 1, 2, 3. Good. Now let's keep going. So after our D, we have C, B, A, and then G. So start with pointer finger, or our middle finger in the middle pearl. Take it off, put our pointer finger down, put our middle finger back down, and then we put our ring finger down, and we're back. So let's do that much. 1, 2, 3. Good. Let's do that one more time. 1, 2, 3. Alright, so now we have the whole thing in reverse order going down. So let's play starting from high G, going all the way down the scale. Oh, and you can pause and work on anything if you want, and we'll play it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Alright, good. Let's do it one more time. Remember, as we start from the top and we go down. So make sure that your airstream that your throat is nice and relaxed, so that you don't get any squeaks as you're going down. Ready? One more time. 1, 2. Ready? Alright, so now I know our whole G major scale. So now you can pause and work on anything you want, and then we're going to do the whole thing together. Now, one quick thing we have to talk about, breathing. We are most likely not going to be able to play the whole thing in one breath at this tempo. So find an appropriate place for you to breathe. Maybe if you can make it to the top and then take a breath and go back down, that's a good spot. Maybe a little before that too is fine. Just don't run out of breath. We want to have, as we're doing this, we want to have a nice clear, consistent sound. And if we try to just use all our air, eventually it's going to die out, and our sound is going to also die out. So keep that in mind as we're doing this. All right, whole thing. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good. So sorry I didn't mention it, but we are only going to play our high G once and then just go right back down to our F sharp. So let's try that again. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So now we have our full G major scale under our fingers. So the great thing about practicing scales is that it doesn't just have to be about getting your fingers in shape. We can layer on different exercises to our scales that highlight different aspects of our technique. One of my favorite things to do with scales is add articulation patterns to them. So for example, I'll play the first 2 notes legato, and I'll play the second 2 notes staccato. And I'll take that pattern all the way through the scale like this. So if you want, you can pause and you can work on that a little bit, and then we're going to play it together nice and slowly, of course. 1, 2, 3. Good. Let's do it one more time, and let's really focus on getting our staccatos nice and light and lining them up with the metronome as cleanly as possible. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Now let's flip it around. So the first 2 notes are staccato and the second 2 notes are legato. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good. Now I want to work on, so that's 2 scalar patterns. I want to work on one more with you, and then you can take those three patterns and take them through all your scales. This one is going to be 3 slurred and then 1 staccato. So now you can pause and work on that. That one's a little different because it's uneven groupings. So if you want, practice that, and then we'll try it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Let's try it one more time. And for our legato, let's really push our air through all 3 of the notes so they're nice and smooth and connected. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. So now you have 3 articulation patterns that you can take through all your scales. Another thing you can do with your scales is slow them down and play them all in whole notes. And then it becomes a sound exercise where you're focusing on keeping your sound nice and full, keeping your airstream nice and fast with plenty of power behind it, and keeping your sound consistent as you go up the scale and back down. So let's try that. And during this exercise, you breathe whenever you think you need to. Just don't let yourself run out of breath. Keep that sound nice and full. All in whole notes. 1, 2, ready? It's a fun one, isn't it? That would be a great exercise to do in the beginning of your practice session. A great way to warm up and get your horn or get your face on the horn a little bit. Now, one more thing I want to show you that we can do with scales is we can add dynamics to them. So let's play our G major scale in quarter notes. And we're going to start at a nice pianissimo. But by the time we get up to the top of our scale, we're going to be at a nice fortissimo. So we slowly grow consistently until we get to the top. Make sure that there's no spikes in dynamics, that you don't just go all of a sudden from piano to forte at once. Keep a nice gradual climb. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good. So that's going up. Going down, we start at the fortissimo and go all the way back to pianissimo. So let's try that much. 1, 2, ready? Good. Now let's try the whole thing. Going up and back down. Pianissimo, fortissimo, back to pianissimo. Ready? Sorry. 1, 2, ready? Excellent. So today, we learned 2 scales, we learned how to practice them, and we learned the best way to practice them. Break it down, practice it slowly, get plenty of repetitions in. We also discussed how to practice with a metronome, and how often or how frequently to practice, and how much to practice in any given day. Lastly, or what we just did, we learned how to make additions to our scalar practice to work on different parts of our technique. If I can leave you with one thing today, it'd be this. Growth does not happen overnight, and it does not have a specific schedule. It's okay if you don't get everything the first try. Don't beat yourself up over that. It takes time, and it takes consistent effort and practice. Have faith in yourself and trust in yourself to grow. Getting frustrated and getting upset will only get in your way when you're trying to play music. It'll only make things harder. It kind of fogs up your head. So whenever you stop, if you get frustrated, just put your horn down and take a break and come back to it later or the next day. So that's all I have today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for participating, and happy practicing. So now that we've worked on some music, let's talk practice tips. And what we just did, we actually utilized 3 really important concepts that we can take into the practice room and really set ourselves up for success. We broke things down, we practiced them slowly, and we did plenty of repetition on each thing we were working on. So we slow things down, or we break things up and slow them down, because our brains can only process so much information at one time. So we need to break things up so we can fully absorb the information, and that way with each new chunk you learn, you're kind of building on what you already know. Doing things like that is really the best way to learn anything, in my opinion at least. The reason we do plenty of repetitions is because playing the saxophone is a very physical ordeal, and it requires the use of several different muscles and muscle groups to make a sound. And we need to train these muscles and strengthen them if we want to be able to play with speed, to move our fingers with speed and precision, or keep a firm grip on our mouthpiece with the embouchure. And the best way to do that is to do a lot of it, and to do a lot of the same thing. So we kind of like are telling our fingers what to do, so that the next time we pick up our horn, it's just going back to what we already know firmly, or what our fingers already know firmly. It's a thing called muscle memory. So a great practice tool we have that can really help us out with practicing like this and utilizing these concepts is a metronome. If you're not familiar, a metronome is just a device or an app on your phone that looks a little bit like this, and it just gives you a steady beat. You can set it at whatever speed you want. I have mine set at 60 BPM. That's one of the ways we measure tempo. And once you set it at that tempo, it stays there. Now, how we practice with a metronome is we try to line the start of each note up, or the start of each note that we're playing up with the beat, like this. Now, practicing like this can help us out in a lot of ways. Metronomes keep us accountable for time and train our fingers to play with good, even rhythm, because this beat will not change. It will not get faster, it will not get slower unless you make it, or unless you choose to change the speed. Another thing it really helps us out with is keeping mentally engaged. Because to practice with the metronome properly, you have to constantly be listening to the metronome and to your own sound, making sure it lines up, to make sure everything feels good and sounds good. So, what I like to do now is go over our E minor scale the same way we went over our G scale, and then we're going to try practicing with a metronome and see how that feels. So now you can pause and get your minor scales music out, find the E natural minor one, and we'll get started. Alright, so our first note is an E. We already kind of know how to play it. These 3 down, and then these 2 down, and then, but no thumb on the octave key this time, and this is the lower E. So make sure when you blow into start, you have a nice relaxed, slow airspeed that you can comfortably hit the note. Now our next note is an F sharp. Same as before, learning our G major scale. We should take our middle finger off. So we have E, and we have F sharp. Our next note is a G, the same one that we started off with on our G major scale. And then we have an A. So we have E, F sharp, G, and then A. So now you can pause and practice that, and then we're going to play it together. Ready? And just quarter notes. 1, 2, 3. Good. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3. Alright, good. Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, 3. All right, good. Let's move on. Our next note is B. To go from A to B, we just take one finger off. And then after that, we have a C. Play a C. We take our pointer finger off. We put our middle finger back on. And now we have D, just like we played it in our G major scale. So all these down and the thumb. And we finish off back at our E, but now with the thumb back on. So we have B, C, D with the thumb, and then E. So let's play that much. Or you can pause and practice if you like. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Same thing. 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, 3. All right, good. So now we know our full E minor scale going up. So let's try to do the whole thing starting from low E, getting all the way up to high E, and then we'll stop there. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Let's do it again. 1, 2, 3. So that's the whole thing going up. Now we just have to learn it going down. So we start on our high E. We have E. Put that finger down for D. Take all that off except for our middle finger up top here for our C. Then we have, so we take that finger off and we put our pointer back down for B. So let's do that much slowly. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3. Good, good. Now let's move on. So our last little set of notes for our E minor scale is A. So to go from our B, we go to put that finger down for A, put another finger down for G, put our middle finger down for our F sharp, and then we put our pointer finger down here for our E. So you have A, G, F sharp, E. Let's do that together. 1, 2, 3. Good, good. Again. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Now let's try to play from all the way up from high E, going all the way down to low E. You can pause and work on anything you want, and then we'll do that much. Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. I know the whole thing. So let's do the whole thing together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, Let's put it to a metronome now. So it's a little faster than we were doing it, but I think we can give it a try. So I'm going to play nice and quietly so you can hear the metronome, and try to line up your playing, or the start of each note, with the metronome. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So it feels a little weird, right? It's because the metronome is essentially a robot. It will never change. It will never waver. Humans, or regular people, you know, that isn't necessarily the case for us. That's kind of why we practice so much. So let's try it again, and keep trying to line your notes up with the metronome. And remember, also listen for your own sound. Make sure that there's clarity between each note. No weird noises or anything. Just straight note to straight note. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So it gets a little easier the more you do it. So let's do it one more time. And this time, see if you can predict when the metronome is going to click next, and see if you can kind of line your fingers up that way. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. So now we know 2 scales, and we know how to practice them. I'm sorry, I'll turn that off. So once you get comfortable at that tempo, I would say bump it up 10 clicks, not to 70. Not too much, just enough so that you feel a difference and you challenge yourself a little bit. And then once you get comfortable there, then you increase it up to 80, and so on and so on, until eventually you're going to want to switch to playing it in 1/8 notes at a slower tempo. So we've talked about how to practice, but we haven't really talked about how often to practice or how much to practice. I would say hit this stuff at least 4 or 5 days a week, at least. But if you want to practice every day, that's obviously fantastic. How much time you practice isn't really that important. I would say 15 to 20 minutes a day is like enough to make a difference, but you can really practice as much as you want without hurting yourself. What's more important is that you consistently hit this stuff for on a weekly basis. That's how you retain the information. That's how your fingers and your muscles retain the information. Now, if you get frustrated whenever you're doing this, take a break. Put your horn down and do something that you like. Maybe you didn't get every note right when we just did that, and that's fine, because building these skills takes time and it takes constant effort. Be patient with yourself and have faith in yourself to succeed and grow, and do the work, and I promise you will see results.